Welcome to Love in Life, a guide to a positive mindset. My aim is to show you that the key to a happier and more positive mind is to love the life you have. We will look at tips and tools you can use to improve your mindset, and the best thing is, we'll all be on this journey together. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Melanie Gillespie today. Mel, you're a psychotherapist, business and mindset coach, and hypnotherapist. You've recently launched a brand new business making luxury candles, which I absolutely love. They're the ones I talked about on my recent episode. And you've also set up a monthly journaling club recently, which we'll talk about more later. But first of all, welcome.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really
thank you for coming on. Do you want to just give us, obviously I've just outlined all your credentials there, but do you want to just give us a little, outline as to what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I started off as a hypnotherapist back in 2015. Obviously, going self-employed, we do a lot of our own self-discovery work, as well as all the things that we do from a business point of view. After about 5 years as a hypnotherapist, I then started coaching other business owners to grow and expand their businesses, but found one of the big things there wasn't so much the business growth side, but it was helping people really delve into their inner world to be able to have that growth that they needed in their business. So that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years or so. And then also alongside that, I set up the candle company as well.
I don't know how you do it, or like you just one of those people that have got, you've got it all, but you seem to manage it all so well.
I do love doing it all. Yeah. My to-do list is never ending, but I think when it's all work that you love doing, it doesn't feel, it's still all enjoyable to do.
Yeah. So the reason why I've asked you to come on today is because a few listeners have asked me about journaling in the past, and I've got to be honest, I'm not a big journaler. Journaler, is that a word? I don't think so. But I'm not the biggest fan of journaling. I can see the benefits of it. But so yeah, that's why I've asked you to come on today. So what are the benefits of journaling?
So the benefits I find really, it's a time where it allows us to look a little bit deeper within what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve, and helps us live with intention. We have on average between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Most of those are repeated from the day before, and we end up just doing the same things round and round again. If we stop to journal, we can really get those thoughts, or at least the surface ones, out of our head to start thinking, why do I want to create this? Or where's that thought coming from? And delve into things a little bit more. I think there's a common misconception with journaling that it's like you need to sit down, write pages and pages, almost like a dear diary, and how you're feeling and all this stuff. And I find it's quite the opposite, really. It can just be even one word answers or small little light bulb moments. So, for example, when I take people through questions in Journaling Club, it will literally be a minute or so to answer each question. People can obviously come back to it later, but it's just about looking inwards a little bit deeper than our surface thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your top tips then when it comes to journaling? Like, is there a good time of day to journal?
As far as time of day, it doesn't really matter too much, but it's about when you can have some uninterrupted time to just think. So it's better, whether it's the morning or the evening or lunchtime, that doesn't matter. But if you've got time where maybe the kids aren't around, or, you're not going to be interrupted, or you can just have that quiet space. So for a lot of people, that will be just before bed or first thing in the morning. But really, anytime you can just
I guess there's benefits to doing either first thing in the morning or last thing at night, I guess, isn't there? Because obviously if you start off your day by journaling, then like you said, it's all about setting intention, so you can start your day with intention. But I guess doing it before bed is also a good time, because it's good for reflection on what has happened in the day or what's happened in the week or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's benefits from all different times, so I wouldn't get too hung up on worrying about the perfect time.
How often do you journal? Do you do like every day? Do you do every morning and night, or?
No, I tend to find it more weekly.
So
that's where I get my when we have big seasonal turns, which I think we might talk about a little bit later,
Yeah.
I'll do a big session which is about longer term goals and visionings. But week by week, I'll really focus on what's been going well throughout the week, but also where do I need to improve? What do I want to change next? By the following week, what would I be pleased to have achieved, and how can I break that down?
Yeah.
It's all things like that. So weekly, I find more helpful than to try and do it daily.
Yeah, I was going to say, and actually, like for somebody like me as well, who I'll be honest, like the thought of journaling sometimes makes me feel, even though I do lots of intention setting, so I probably do my own version of journaling, I guess, but the thought of journaling, because you hear so many different people saying, I guess do it once a day or what have you, then I just think, God, it's just, I just find that overwhelming. So actually, that's quite nice to hear that you do it once a week. And I guess it's just, whatever works for each individual, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. The last thing we want is for it to become a chore. And
Mm.
also, I say to the ladies in the journaling club, the idea behind it isn't about beating yourself up for if you haven't done the things that you set your intentions for the last time. It's just about the more time we can give, or the things that we've got going on, if we can give them time for our conscious awareness to really stop and look at them. 2 weeks later, if we still haven't done anything with it, our brain's going to start to think, oh yeah, I still really wanted to focus on that. 2 weeks later, if it's still another goal, we just start to give it more and more energy until we do start to give it some change and some time within the week. But if we don't journal and think about it, that thought is just lost in the sea of all of our other thoughts.
And I guess, like, I've got this question written down, but I guess thinking about it, it probably sounds the answer is probably really obvious, but is it best to be guided through journaling? Or is it good sometimes to just pick up a pen and paper and see what comes out?
Yeah, I think if people are comfortable to just see what comes out, great. But I'm always quite a fan of guided because, so unless you're skilled in thinking up your own questions, which most of us, unless we're trained in this kind of industry, wouldn't be, because the questions are designed to almost go against our natural way of thinking. So we are the people that we are today because of our habits and behaviors and what we're doing. So journaling helps us kind of question those things. Why am I doing it that way? What makes me think that? Why is that my limit? So if we don't naturally have those questions to ask ourselves, it's helpful to have them guided.
Yeah. And I guess it sometimes picking up a pen and paper and just going with the flow then becomes more of a Dear Diary kind of scenario,
Yeah.
which I guess isn't a bad thing sometimes, because I know I've done it before where I have picked up a pen and paper, and when you just waffle on and on and on, and sometimes actually you end up writing down things that, oh God, I didn't even realize I felt like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for people that find it beneficial, it's great. But what we don't want to do is end up going down the rabbit hole of, and then this went wrong, and then I feel bad about this, and then this is dragging me down, and it ending up feeling like a bit of a heavy exercise.
Yeah. So going on to slightly different, but I always say that coaches need coaches. And as everyone knows, I'm also a mindset coach. And, I've said in my podcast before that I see mindset coach, and Mel has been my coach. I saw Mel, it's about a year ago, actually, that I first came to you. So I originally came to you when I was intrigued by shadow work. I think I was reading a book by not by Carl Jung, but it was about his work, and it just really got me intrigued. And that was the one thing that I really focused on. And you were the first person, after seeing, the kind of tips that you give online and that kind of thing. Like, I knew that you were the right person to come and speak to about that. I don't know. There was just something telling me that you were the right person to come and speak to. So yeah, I'm a big fan of even coaches need coaching. But can you explain why it's so important to reflect on our shadow selves?
Yes. So the shadow self, for anyone who's not acquainted with it, is the kind of hidden or suppressed part of our psyche. We have the external part of ourselves that we show to the world, like our strengths, our fun side, the things we're good at. But then we all have a bit of a side to ourselves that we keep hidden. So the things that we feel ashamed about or embarrassed about, or worry about, all the things that we wouldn't necessarily want to broadcast to the world. But when we sit alone with ourselves, we know that those bits are there. Now, the part of our shadow is just as important as the lighter part of ourselves because they both work in unison. Our light can only really go as far as we. So, an example of this is so last night in Journaling Club, we were talking about endings and new beginnings. So, when we set goals, lots of people will have an idea of, yes, I want to hit whether it's a certain amount of money or a certain fitness target or whatever. Fab, that's in our light side. That's the goal that we want to strive for. But what is buried in the other side, the shadow side, is the part of us that will need to come to an end to be able to reach that. So if we want to have some massive results in our business, it might be, well, I need to kill off the part of me that's either lazy or that is worrying about what people think of me. Or for us to achieve a new fitness goal, it might be, okay, well, I have certain habits and behaviors that are really sabotaging all of my success in that realm, and I need to let that part of me come to an end. So it's not just looking at the goals and what we're striving towards, it's looking at what are the bits of us that are holding us back from it.
And I guess it's not necessarily like changing those things, or because sometimes like those things are part of our personality, aren't they? And it's a case of accepting them and showing you how you can work with that in your life, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So when it is in, inbuilt parts of our personality, it's just bringing it to the light of our conscious awareness. So although it's still part of our shadow self, we can learn to work with it and still get the results that we want. But there are some bits of our shadow that just by becoming aware of them, we can actually change and adapt. And that's how we go on to expand the lighter side of ourselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how can journaling help us understand, our shadow selves, or discover what our shadow side is?
Yeah, so this is where it's really interesting because journaling often starts off with our goals and intentions. So, what would we like to be different? What would we like to achieve? But how we can then bring in our shadow side is by going through guided journaling prompts. We'll get to, so what do we need to change to make that goal reality? What could get in the way of it happening? And when we start to become aware of, that's the thing that holds me back, that leads us into our shadow self to know that's where I need to do some healing work to be able to achieve that goal.
So, and is that the kind of thing that you would do in, like, talk us through what happens in your journaling club then? Would that be, do you do it in themes? So is that the kind of thing that you would go through?
Yeah, so every session we have a slightly different theme. So one week it might be about boundaries, one week it might be about letting go, or it might be about creation and inspiration, or it could be releasing and shedding things. But we start off always with a little meditation at the beginning, just about 5 minutes to kind of get us in a good headspace for it. Then I'll talk through about 10 to 15 different questions on that theme. So it might be, for example, if it was like the boundaries week, where do you have strong boundaries? Where do you struggle with boundaries? What would having better boundaries look like in your life? What would be better as a result of it? Then we look into what stops you from being able to implement them. What is it that you're worrying about? Which might be, I don't want to upset people, or I don't want to cause any conflict. That then leads us into, where was that part of our shadow, which might be that we learned when we were younger to avoid conflict, to keep the peace. Then I can talk through hints and tips about how to heal that part of ourselves. So then we can feel more confident implementing those boundaries as adults.
Yeah.
And then we just finish off with a little visualization at the end.
Oh, it sounds lush. I know that you live your life by the wheel of the year. Can you explain what that is? And like, I know it's probably going to take a while to explain what that is, but we've got time. But yeah, can you explain what the wheel of the year is and how this time of year is perfect for reflecting on our shadow self? And I know I've kind of asked that question in 2 bits there, but so explain a little bit about the wheel of the year, because I know that you're really, that's how you live your life, isn't it?
Yes, I do love the wheel of the year just because we are naturally a part of nature. So we follow the same kind of cycles. So the wheel of the year is essentially 8 different seasonal turning points, quite often celebrated by pagans. They're old Celtic festivals that go around our journey around the sun. So from the summer solstice in June and we've got the opposing side. We've got the winter solstice, which is towards the end of December. These are the 2 points where we either have the most hours of daylight or the least hours of daylight.
Yeah.
Opposite those, in March and September, we have our equinoxes, the spring equinox and the autumn equinox, where we have equal hours of daylight and darkness. And then in between those 4 dates, there's 4 kind of cross-quarter festivals. So they're all points where either the light is increasing until we reach its real peak in the summer, then we lose the daylight as we get round into the real depths of December, and then the light starts to come back again.
Yeah.
So living a life in line with the wheel of the year is all about celebrating our own internal cycles as well.
Yeah.
These don't just have to happen annually, but everything starts from we have an idea, a seed of intention, we grow it, we fulfill it, then we outgrow things and we have to release and shed things, and then we birth new ideas.
Yeah. That's something I've been talking about a lot recently, actually. It's something I've been looking into a lot more. And it's probably because, you know, from what I've seen about what you've posted about it and other people that I follow, and it just is something that makes so much sense, because I guess our energy levels are reflected by what time of year it is and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, so just like a lot of us will have a monthly cycle, we change with the energy of the moon. That's also a monthly cycle. We have our annual cycle. So we're living in lots of different cycles all the time, but we know our energy fluctuates with it. And the energy that we have in the height of summer is very different from what we have in the depths of winter, where we naturally want to hibernate, do less, and conserve our energy.
Yeah. And like you say, this is something I did an episode about this a couple of weeks ago, actually, but us as women, you know, I know most of my listeners are women, but most of us have a monthly cycle, and it's almost like our monthly cycle is reflected in the seasons that, you know, the changes of the season, like you say, tend to have more energy in the summer, and that's what we're like. We tend to be like in the middle of our cycle, don't we? Whereas, you know, towards the end of our cycle and at the very beginning of our cycle, we've got less energy and we sort of go within ourselves a little bit more. And I guess that
in the winter.
Yeah, and I guess that does reflect well perfectly with the seasons of the year, the wheel of the year. So how is this particular time perfect for reflecting on our shadow self?
So today is actually Samhain. It's pronounced, it looks online as if it's Samhain is how it's spelled, but it is Samhain or Samhain, which I believe comes from the Old Irish of summer's end. So it's the real last harvest festival that we have throughout the year.
Yeah.
So this night is often, well, now we know it more commonly as Halloween, but it's often referred to as the witch's new year, because for a lot of pagans, they will start New Year from this turning point, as opposed to our calendar year of just the new year being January the 1st, which is kind of, you know, plonked just in the middle of winter. But when we think about the cycle of how we would have lived in line with the land, from all of our growth of our crops and everything, we would have had the abundance of that in the summer. Then we would have gone into harvest, right down to this point where everything of the last year that we've grown is starting to die off and shed. Then we go into the part where we start to rebirth new seeds that will come up in the spring. So this period now, kind of November, December time, is where I have a lovely friend that describes it as almost like the being in the womb phase of the cycle. So rather than New Year starting next year, and then when we're already in the spring, we're in the hibernation period of before the new year starts. So it's almost like the last cycle has just finished. So this is why it's a great time to release and shed, to thank all the lessons we've had of the last year and all of the growth, ready to start our new cycle. But that might be that we spend the next kind of couple of months just withdrawing and retreating and preparing ourselves for all of our new growth next year.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense. Like the more and more I learn about it, it just makes so much sense to plan our lives and plan our energy levels, I guess. Not plan our energy, you can't plan your energy levels, but you know what I mean, like embrace nature and embrace the things that are going on at the particular time of the year. So what in particular what suggestions would you make for people to, you know, for a complete beginner for journaling, what would you recommend people ask themselves to journal on for, how do you say it? So I've got my candle here. I'm looking at it now. Not
Oh, bless
Samhain.
you, Samhain. Yes.
Samhain.
So for this time of the year, I'd recommend really looking at what is drawing to a close in your life. So it doesn't have to be anything big or major, although for some people it could be, like they could be moving out of a house or ending a relationship or coming to the end of a career. But it could also just be that you've had enough of a part of yourself, people pleasing, or certain habits of behavior that you've carried with you for a long time, that you think, I'm just ready to close that part now.
Yeah.
And then to start thinking, what new beginnings is this making way for? So it's that kind of allowing a part of ourselves to draw to a natural close, to allow the next part to start. If we look back on our lives, there'll be so many times where this has already happened. It could be that we finished school, that came to a natural close. We went to university, that came to a natural close. A career would have finished at some point. It could be that we had maternity time and then that drew to a close and we returned to work.
And friendships ending, relationships ending. Yeah.
All of those things. We're in a constant cycle of change, but a lot of people will focus just more on the light side of things, like what's next, without honoring what's the thing that's ending to allow the next to come in.
Yeah, I guess it's about having the right balance, isn't it? Because like you say, some people reflect or focus on the light side, to try and look at the positive side all the time. But then on the other side of that, you've got people that tend to focus more on the dark side, don't they? Or more on the negative side of things. And then it becomes a sort of vicious cycle, whichever way you look at it, whether you're mainly focused on positive or mainly focused on negative. Either way, that can be a vicious cycle of, I guess, not actually letting those things go and not moving on from it.
Yeah, so we need to have a nice balance. And that's why if we look at more of the darker side of things, I'll always kind of wind it up in Journaling Club to finish on a positive. So if it's letting go of things, it will be, and what are you thankful for from that lesson? Or how have you grown as a person because of that? So that it feels like we're on a positive note, letting go of it. And then what are you ready to embrace in its place? Or what's the new part of you that you're excited about? So we're not just opening up a can of worms and then stuck in a dark place. We want to always bring it back to the positive. Equally, when we're looking at all the positives of what are my goals, what's my vision, where do I want to be, that stuff is fantastic. But equally, we can balance that out with a bit of, so what do I actually need to change about me to become the person who's able to achieve all of this stuff?
Yeah. What are your tips when it comes to rituals? Because I know when I sort of researched and did a bit of a winter solstice ritual myself. And, last year, obviously not yet, but last year, wrote down all the things. I actually got my family to do it as well. I think I might do that again this year because actually they really enjoyed it. They obviously wouldn't admit that, but I think they did. But we all wrote down things that we were ready to let go of, and then we burnt them in the fire. So what is the significance of like burning the things that you're ready to let go of?
I always just find it's a really lovely thing energetically to do. It's almost like we're holding the lesson within us. And once we've written it down and burnt it, it's like we're letting the energy of the lesson go. So I use fire rituals at most of the turning points. So like especially winter solstice and summer solstice, we'll burn down those things that I'm ready to release with thanks for whatever it's brought me and whatever I've learned about it. And then once the ashes have all cooled, I tend to then just go and scatter them into the grass outside, or just bury them in the ground somewhere. So I'm kind of energetically releasing it back to Mother Earth.
Yeah.
For the lesson, and then just passing the energy back.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Yeah. Because I guess does it, if somebody just, wrote down what they're ready to let go of and burnt it without any intention behind it, does it still have an impact? Obviously it's not going to have the same amount of impact, but would that still have an impact?
It would still be, I mean, it's always a nice thing to do, but it's the intention behind it that really carries it forward and carries the energy of it.
Yeah. So as you're burning it, think, I'm grateful, thank you for this serving whatever it served me, and I'm ready to let go. And
to genuinely feel that you're ready to let go of that thing. Because otherwise you could have it written down, I'm ready to let go of that person that bullied me at school and is now holding me back. But if
Yeah.
we're really still angry and cross about it, we can be burning it and nothing will really change. So we've
Yeah.
got to be ready to really let something go. Just the
Mm.
same as on the light side of things, we could have the Ferrari and the Malibu house and whatever on our vision board, but if we genuinely don't believe we're going to have it, then we're not aligned to it. So the alignment works both ways, with releasing in the shadow side just as
Yeah.
much as our
Or
manifestation.
believing that you're worthy of it. That's something that is, you know, as I'm doing more like belief coding, you know, I'm finding that so much comes down to self-worth and what we actually believe we're worthy of. And you can think as much as you want, I want this, I want that. But actually, if you don't believe that you're genuinely worthy of it, then you're probably not going
It
to
can't
achieve
come
it.
to us.
No.
Yeah. Because we can only achieve within the realms of how far we've expanded our
Yeah.
consciousness and our
And that's
belief
why it's so
system.
good, isn't it, to reflect on the shadow self or our limiting beliefs, whatever way you look at it. I guess would you describe limiting beliefs as the same as shadow self? Is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's same sort of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
absolutely. Because a limiting belief is just essentially something that we've learned at some point. Everything that we learned throughout life was helpful to us somewhere, for
Yeah.
either avoiding pain or driving us towards comfort and pleasure.
Mm.
So a limiting belief is just something that we've learned for one of those reasons in our past, but later down the line goes on to not be helpful. So if it's that we learned to not speak up because we didn't want to look silly or feel embarrassed, or to avoid some kind of ridicule, that was helpful once, but then it goes on to become a limiting belief if we're actually in a work scenario where we're more than capable of being able to put our hand up with suggestion forwards, but there's that voice in our head saying, don't do that in case you get it wrong and everybody laughs at you. That's our shadow self that's learnt somewhere to not put our hand up because it's trying to protect us. And it's up to us to become aware of that thought, which is where journaling can help. What is it that's holding me back from putting myself forward at work? Why is it that I'm worrying about what are these people thinking? Oh yeah, it's because I learnt that somewhere down the line. How can I heal that part of me, which might be then through ritual and release of, thank you, brain, for trying to look after me when I was little and not feel embarrassed. In my new environment now, I'm safe and it's okay for me to put my hand up.
Yeah, it's funny because I obviously when I came to you looking to work on the shadow self, like I'd heard about limiting beliefs before, and it's funny because I thought shadow self was a whole different thing, but essentially it's just different phrases and terminology, and it's just a different, it's just a way of looking at what holds us back, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And that's one of the nice things with Journaling Club, I find, is that people don't have to know all the different terminologies of shadow self or limiting beliefs, because the questions are nice and gentle and I guide people through. You don't need to know all the back history of it, because the questions will help you just come up with your own answers.
Yeah. So how can people find out about your journaling club then? Because I think it's an amazing way if people want to work on their limiting beliefs and work on their shadow self and work out what's holding them back. I just think this is an amazing way to, correct me if I'm wrong, but your journaling club is a very accessible and affordable way to access this kind of work without the big payout of a coach.
Yes, that was my thinking behind it, because everybody can do with self-reflection work. It doesn't matter whether we're completely new to it or if we've been doing this work for a long time. In the group, there are quite a few therapists who use it for their own reflection work. There's also people who are brand new to it. There's 2 sessions a month we do. I run the same club on both Sunday nights and Monday nights. So if people can't make the Sunday, they can come on the Monday instead. Then there's 2, so it's every fortnight, and it's only £20 a month. And I keep that on a month by month basis. So there's no minimum commitment. Some people join for a month or 2. Some people stay every single month. There's no tie-in commitment to it.
Yeah. And that's why it's great to be, if you're like me and needs the guidance when it comes to journaling, then you're there to prompt people, to ask them questions. And I guess, do they need to share share
No.
anything? They do it all themselves.
Yeah, so it's nicely private. So although everybody's on the call, some people prefer to keep their screens off and their mics off. That's fine. But I'm there for if anyone does want to ask a question. Sometimes I'll say, is anyone stuck on anything? And people can ask if they like. But I never put anyone on the spot or say, do you want to share? Because I think it's such a private exercise.
Yeah.
And also the sessions are only half an hour long. So it's not like you have to take a load of time out of the day to try and do it. Between the start little meditation, then it's a few questions. If you have more or something really sparks something in you, of course you can come back to it and write more later. But I guide you through the questions quite quickly. So it's not like a lengthy thing that you have to sit there over.
Yeah, no, it does sound great. Just I want to ask you actually, just quickly, something's just come to my head, but how do you obviously, as I said at the beginning when I introduced you, you also now have a product-based business as well as all this other stuff that you do. Would you describe that as your side hustle?
Not necessarily, because I don't see it as something that I dip in and out of,
Yeah.
because long term I have big visions for it. So it's
Oh,
almost
wow.
like a seesaw of balancing. Coaching and therapy has been full time for me for the last 8 years. And so my candles is something that's been more evenings and weekends. But now, as that's getting bigger, I'm just kind of balancing my time the best I can between the two.
Mm.
So not that there's anything wrong with the term side hustle, but I've never really
Yeah.
thought of it in that sense,
Yeah.
because I've always thought of it as a
You're way
long
too ambitious.
yeah.
I bet you find this time of year I bet the sales go mad at this time of year, don't they? Because everyone loves candles.
Literally from the 1st of September,
Yeah.
it's just boomed, which is lovely. For anybody who isn't aware of them, the candle range is for the 8 different seasonal points in that wheel of the year. So that's
Yeah.
what I think is quite nice to have that as part of our little ritual with accompanying journaling as well.
Yeah. So talk us through, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I honestly I'm obsessed with your Samhain candle, which I've got on now.
Oh, thank you.
And so tell us a little bit about the different smells, like, and how is that reflected in the time of the year?
So I spent about a year in product research and development first to try and get these to the quality that I have now, which I'm really, really proud of. But as far as the scents, I tried to anchor them into the seasonal turns as best I could. So for Samhain, where we are now, that one, as you know, is very pumpkin spicy. There's lots of clove and cinnamon. When we come into Yule for winter solstice, that to me smells just like Christmas trees. It's very pine, bit of eucalyptus in there. As we then come around to the end of the winter, the scents are still very woody and earthy, like everything's just coming back to life. When we go into the spring, those are much more floral scents. So it's pink, pepper, and rose. Then we come around into Beltane, which has got a lot of oak, because that's the time in May Day where everything's obviously all fully out in abundance.
Yeah.
Round for our summer solstice, that's rock salt and driftwood. So I was thinking very much those lovely
Like
long
beachy.
summer beachy evenings. Then we come round into our harvest for Lammas, which I've got as myrrh and tonka. When we reach the autumn equinox, that then goes into blackcurrant and tuberose. So thinking blackcurrant, all the things that are out in abundance at that time of year, before we're coming back down into Samhain again.
Blimey, like you say, I'm surprised that only took you a year to research all that and do all the tests. And I know you did an awful lot of testing and trials and things like that, didn't you, to make sure it's absolutely perfect. I'm surprised that only took you a year with all those different, lovely, amazing scents that you've got going on there.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but I was so pleased to reach those final formulas, because one of the main things, I was always a luxury candle addict myself, but I always hated it when they didn't quite burn properly and you get loads of wax left up at the sides or all of that stuff. So I researched them enough and tested them to get to a point that they all burn all the way nicely to the bottom.
Yeah, and I can concur that is absolutely 100% the case. And I think I might have said this in a previous podcast episode actually, but when they do get to the bottom, when they're completely burnt out, even the jars still hold the smell. So I've got like 3 jars in my window that are empty, that, you know, they've all been burnt, and you can still smell it when you walk in the room. And in fact, like my sister, she walked in once and she was like, I can smell like a chai latte, and that's what I always say it smells like now. Your Samhain
Yeah.
candle is it to me, it smells like chai latte. It's like all those, like you say, cloves and cinnamon, and yeah,
Mm.
it just the smells are amazing. I'm just like massively
Oh, thank
fangirling now
you.
over your candles. I'm a massive fan. What is the most popular one out of interest?
Interestingly, it's actually Imolk, which on the website is always the least popular. But when I'm at
Mm,
fairs and markets and people smell the whole range, that's the one they tend to go towards. It's actually one of my favorites too. That's the one that's very, very earthy. It's very woody and it smells like burning log fires, like
yeah,
the embers that are left at the end of a fire. And it's just a really moorish smell, very
yeah,
dense and very heavy.
yeah. I imagine this time of year is a particularly busy time of year in terms of not just your coaching, but obviously your candle making as well. So how on earth do you manage your time, especially when you've got two completely different businesses?
So I knew that this would be a busier time for candles. So throughout the summer, when things were quieter, that's when I spent a lot of time on batch making the stock. So then at this time, the time is spent more on dispatching orders, doing markets, and those things. So
Mm,
again, it's just through journaling and a bit of intentional living, using my time well. So in the summer, to think, okay, well, things are quieter. What can I be doing now? Because I wouldn't want to be spending my weekends now trying to make stock because I need to be out at markets and selling and posting them.
yeah. Yeah, well done. Yeah, I don't know how, like I say, I don't know how you do it. You're such an inspiration, and yeah, I don't really know
Thank you.
how else to end it, but just say you are a massive inspiration, and I've raved about you on here before because um you really have, I obviously came to you at a time when I really did need to reflect on my shadow because I was transitioning from one business into another, and
Mhm.
you were a massive part of um that transition. Like even when I was still making wedding cakes, that was the time that I started coming to you, and I was sort of
Yeah.
knew what I wanted to do, and um was starting to do the work that I needed to do, but I still had the wedding cake business as well. So like you were a massive part of my transition. So yeah, I just want to say thank you so
Oh,
much.
well, thank you for choosing me. It was a real honor to be walking alongside you for that period.
Ah. But yeah, and thank you so much for coming on today. Obviously, if anybody is interested in joining your journaling club, which it sounds like I should do as well, to be fair. But how can they find you?
The best place to find me is on Instagram under Melanie Gillespie Coach. And I think pinned to the top, there's a post on Journaling Club. So you could just send me a message over on there and I can email all the details over.
Yeah. And it's £20 a month, and
Yes.
there's two sessions every month, did you say? So every fortnight.
Yeah, so every fortnight there's a session, and you can stay for as long as you like. They run on both Sundays and Mondays, so you can choose whichever group you want to be in. At the moment, there's about 15 ladies in each group. But if you, like I say, it doesn't matter which you join. So if one weekend you're away and you miss the Sunday, you can just hop in the Monday one instead.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Mel. Obviously, if you are interested in joining them, please do go over and take a look, and just follow Mel anyway, because she literally posts every single morning without fail. And she just produces, I don't know how she comes up with the content that she comes up with. She produces the most inspirational stuff. So please go over and follow Mel, and obviously buy her candles as well, because they're amazing.
Oh,
But
thank you, Lisa.
no problem. Thank you so much for coming on today, Mel. It's been really nice to talk to you. And it'd be good to get you back on again actually to talk about the wheel of the year, because I'm really interested in looking into that more. It's like I say, it's something that I've been looking
Mhm.
at more recently anyway, is like living within our seasons of life and our cycles of life. So yeah, do you think you'd like to come back on and talk about that in a little bit more
Oh,
detail? Because we kind of had to brush over it a little bit, didn't we, to fit
yeah.
it all in?
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely love to.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mel.
Thank you,
Um,
Lisa. I appreciate your time.
God, isn't Mel just so lovely? I really enjoyed that conversation with her. If you've enjoyed listening to that, then please do go and follow Mel on Instagram. Go and follow me. Obviously, as always, please do share, like, subscribe, and all of that. It really, really helps me out and helps me reach new people. I've popped Mel's details and obviously my email address for all the usual stuff down in the notes below. So please do check it out, and I'll see you next week. Have an amazing week. Bye.